Today's lesson, we're going to be focusing our attention really on what we call misrepresentation. Now, in your book, there's quite a lengthy discussion on misrepresentation. It actually shows up on a number of different places, so it's a very, very important component to the Insurance Act. Now, there are basically two kinds of misrepresentation. There's what we call material and, of course, innocent. The material misrepresentation basically is a fairly serious thing. In other words, the definition of material misrepresentation is that had the insurance company known what they now know, would they in fact have issued the policy? In other words, they discovered something that had they known at that time that you had this particular issue and everything else, would they in fact have issued the policy? If the answer was yes, they would have done it anyways, then nothing happens and it just continues on, okay? If in fact the answer is no, had we known what we now know, we would have never issued the policy as applied for, then obviously you've got a material misrepresentation. So things like, for example, you have a health issue that you didn't tell us about. You might have forgotten it. It might not have been a serious thing for you, but from an insurance company's perspective, we need to know. In other words, insurance companies don't like to insure what we call pre-existing conditions. So the onus is on you as the life insurer to basically divulge all medical information. So, for example, if you told us that you had told us, for example, that you had gone to the doctor regarding that you may be a diabetic. Well, that's a very serious situation. It is information that we need to know. Or, for example, you put in a false claim for disability insurance. You claim that you earn a certain amount of income. In actual fact, you weren't earning that income when we discovered that when you're injured, that income wasn't actually there. Once again, that's material misrepresentation. In other words, the definition is very clear that had we known then what we now know, would we have in fact have issued that particular policy? If the answer is no, because it is a material situation, then obviously that contract will be void at that point. Okay. The second one is what we call innocent misrepresentation. This is a situation where, in fact, there was no real intent to hide anything. It was simply a mistake. It was simply an oversight, whatever. It wasn't material enough that the insurance company would come back and say, okay, based on that information, we would still continue on issuing the policy anyway. So therefore, it's what we call innocent misrepresentation. So basically, it's a negligence type of situation. There was really no actual intent to actually harm anybody, but you simply forgot. Now that we know, the question once again will be asked the same thing. Now that we know this, would we have in fact have issued that policy had we known at that time? If the answer is yes, then obviously we'll just proceed on that basis. But if the answer is no, like in a material situation, then the contract, of course, will be terminated. Now, in a subsequent lesson, of course, we'll be talking about what we call the contestability period. So this will come back to us later on when we start talking about contestability period. So we will be referring back to this at a subsequent lesson. The other thing to remember here is that we'll also be talking about fraud. And again, in a separate lesson, you'll find that there's also misrepresentation when it comes to fraud, forgery, and theft. But there is a lesson on that as well. And that goes, of course, well beyond the 2-year contestability period.